Hey adventurers, so today is going to be another book review. This is actually going to be for Madouc by Jack Vance, which is book 3 of the Lyonesse trilogy by Jack Vance. Last Monday was supposed to be my review for The Man in the Iron Mask, but I didn't get it filmed. I didn't have time to do it the day that I needed to, and so that got pushed off. So this one is coming out before The Man in the Iron Mask, even though I read Man in the Iron Mask first, but Man in the Iron Mask should be out on this Thursday, I believe. So I'll have 2 reviews this week, and yeah. Anyways, Madouc isn't, as with the rest of the Lyonesse trilogy, it's an Arthurian adjacent series, meaning King Arthur stories take place in the same world, except that this is pre-Arthur. It's a generation or 2 before Arthur is even born. But it's an adventure. This one is, again, it's magic and fantasy and whimsy and fairy tale and all these things that the first 2 books were, but as you'll see momentarily here, it's quite a bit different. Before I jump into the body of my review though, I will quickly say, if you like what you're seeing from an Erudite adventure, we would really appreciate it if you would like and comment and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll get right into this review now. So Madouc is the final book in the Lyonesse trilogy, as I already mentioned. Once again, I heartily enjoyed this entire series. The adjacency to the great Arthurian mythos, as well as the ties to Lyonesse, which really come in this book. And just so much more in these stories. They just really enhance an already great story. This one is quite a bit different from the first 2 books in the trilogy by the fact that, as the title implies, follows the character of Madouc. We really don't know a whole lot about Madouc. In the first 2 books, we know that she exists. We kind of know a little bit about her history, but so much of and we don't know her character, we don't really know where she comes from, what her history is, or anything like that, but we learn all that in this book. This 3rd book really brings her front and center, and you find out she's an immensely enjoyable character. She's a bit impish and very reckless at times, but she's by no means dumb. She's a very, very smart character. Her journey in this story is absolutely wonderful, and the friendship she builds along the way. The story continues to build upon what was set up in the first 2 books and uses those building blocks to tell the arguably, and in my opinion, the best story of the 3. It would not work without the first 2, obviously, but because those 2 books are there, we come to an extremely satisfying conclusion with this 3rd book, and the entire story of this, if you look at this entire book as a conclusion to the trilogy, it's just extremely enjoyable and very, very well done. Just because the focus of this book is on Madouc, though, does not mean that we get nothing from the other characters like Lyonesse or Drune, or even King Casimir, Madouc's dad, grandfather, whatever, adopted grandfather, however that all works. They all play vital roles in this story, and you actually do see the completion of their story arcs, but it's through the perspective of Madouc, who has a very different perspective on the world, as you see through her story. As I mentioned, we get quite a few tie-ins to other Arthurian stories. We see things like the idea of a round table, and, well, actually we do see a round table, and magical chairs set around the round table and stuff like that. And though Merlin doesn't exist in this trilogy, we can see how he, as a magician, is kind of this last vestige of the great magicians that are in this book, like Shimrod and Mergen and Melanthe and so many of the other characters. Although it's the Merlin that we know from Arthurian literature is very different from these characters. There's things that happen with these characters in this series, in this story, that you can understand, okay, I see how Merlin could be this character that he is, while remaining the final parts of this greater magical, this greater magician culture, I guess, if you could say. I was very surprised by one of the choices at the end of The Green Pearl, which is book 2, and I was like, it kind of came out of left field, and I didn't understand why it was there, and it didn't really make sense, but I was like, okay, I guess we're going with that then. But after reading book 3, after reading Madouc, I came to an understanding of, oh, I understand now exactly why they chose to do this, and I like the decision because of how book 3 happened and what happens in book 3. You see exactly why it was done and how it's set up for this final book and for major events at the end of this final book. While still definitely a bit more adult than many other Arthurian stories are, well, though not all of them, there's a lot of inappropriateness in the Arthurian stories, whether most of the time it's only implied or hidden a little bit, but it's there. And this, it's a little bit more in the forefront of the stories. And while that is the case, the story itself manages to remain the focus of the book, and it far outweighs the negatives I might have had with the story, or with this unfortunate adult content, as I usually refer to it. But it wasn't nearly as strong as it was in book one. There was far less of it. And of course, Vance remains able to write a very immersive and whimsical world throughout this whole tale. You're kind of just going along for the ride and to see what happens next. It's a great finale for a wonderful trilogy, and I definitely plan to read more of Vance in the future, although I don't know what I will go to or when I will get to it, because I've got a lot of books to read and I don't have them on my shelf. So that means it'll be longer before I get to them, because I'm trying to make the books that are physically on my shelves a priority. So that is my review for Madouc by Jack Vance, and the conclusion to this Lyonesse trilogy. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday. We will see you guys again soon. Stay warm.